Before I get started with this commentary, let me give a shout out to Trill, Texas for sending this to me. And one of the first things that I said when I got this is I said, I'm so glad you sent this to me because this story that I'm bringing to you actually piggybacks off of a story that I bring up so much or a lot on my channel when I feel the need to bring it up. But in this picture, you see two individuals. One you see is a man on the left, and a baby on the right. And the man's name is Eric Darrell Smith, and his baby right there on the right, his name is Mello Smith. Now, this story ended bad for a lot of parties that are involved. Like pretty much a lot of parties, and there was more parties involved with it than just them two, but I'll mention it as I continue going with the story. So basically what happened is this guy, Eric Darrell Smith, murdered his child's mother, then kidnapped the child, who was the baby right here, and went on basically a high-speed chase. Like the cops was going after him and everything. And then they engaged in a shootout in which Eric Darrell Smith was killed, as well as this baby. Now, the crazy part about this actually happened back last May. So this happened last year. I'm just now hearing about it. What has just now come out is that the police knew that there was a baby in this car. They knew because it was reported that the baby was kidnapped by the father and he was in the car. But they still shot into the car anyway, and the baby ended up dying from being shot. Now, let me just go ahead and say this. This father right here is a piece of shit. Number one, let's get that out the way. He murdered the mother of his child and took his child on a high-speed chase, 3 months old, kidnapped the child, and now the child is pretty much dead. We can pretty much say the child is dead because of him, because he put the child in a predicament that the child probably didn't even know what the hell was going on. The child was only 3 months. Didn't know what was happening. But now some responsibility and blame has to go onto the police because they knew that a baby was in that car. So they could have had another way of getting that child out of there, but they didn't. They just when they saw that he was shooting at them, they shot right back, knowing the child was there. And I believe the child was in the front seat. So a stray bullet hit that child, and the child died along with the father. I hope that guilt is actually weighing in on them. But like I said, the father is no better. Unfortunately, we can't cuss him out. We can cuss him out, but he's not here to hear because he's dead. Now, the reason why I said I'm glad Trill, Texas sent this to me is because it reminds me of the story that happened in Mississippi. And not Mississippi, because this one happened in Mississippi. In Louisiana, with the two black cops. Again, y'all heard me talk about this story before. Who was on a high-speed chase, chasing after that PC dad and his son, who was in the front seat on a high-speed chase. And he tried to use his vehicle as a weapon and back up into one of the cops and run him over, and they shot into the car. Now, and one of them shot through the back window, hitting the boy in the front. Now, the difference between that story and this one, besides the obvious that the cops were black and that the dad is white and the son was white, is that this cop did not know that there was a child in the front seat. So when they were shooting at him, you know, and that bullets are flying everywhere, fragments are flying everywhere. So no one knows where everything is going. And they didn't know that there was a child in the front seat until they looked and they saw that the child was slumped over and dead. That's the difference between the two. Now, I wonder what happened to the cops in this case who knew that there was a baby in the front seat and still opened fire and still killed him. Well, I'm going to go ahead and read this article that's coming from the Insider and see if they have any more additional information. Insider has learned that police knew a 3-month-old baby was in the front seat of a car when they opened fire on the vehicle during a confrontation with the boy's father last May. Last month, Insider reported on the May 2021 death of Mello Parker, which at the time was under investigation by Biloxi police. Just the day after Insider published our story on Mello's death, Biloxi police announced that they had completed the investigation and turned the case over to the Harrison County District Attorney's Office, which would take the case to a grand jury. The DA's office did not return Insider's request for comment on whether the case had been presented to a grand jury yet on Tuesday. Mello's cousin, LaShonda Parker, told Insider that the family had given little to no information about the shootout, including whether it was an officer's bullet that fired the fatal shot. As Insider previously reported, Eric Darrell Smith kidnapped his son after murdering LaMello's mother and her nephew at a home in Louisiana on May 3rd, 2021. He then led police on a chase into Mississippi, which finally came to an end when he ran over a spike strip near Biloxi and came to a stop in the middle of a highway median. Bystander video shows the moment the car came to a stop and officers circled the vehicles with guns drawn. Just seconds later, the sound of multiple rounds being fired could be heard. Smith was pronounced dead at the scene while LaMello died at a hospital the following day. On Tuesday, the Jackson County Sheriff's Department in Mississippi responded to a records request from Insider, releasing a call log related to the chase. It showed that officers knew a baby was in the front seat of the vehicle, though the log didn't specify whether the baby was in the father's arms or in the front passenger seat. A spokesperson for the sheriff's department did not immediately return Insider's request for more information on the baby's location in the vehicle or explanation as to why police opened fire on the vehicle if they knew a baby was inside. Insider also reached out to the other agencies involved in the shootout: the Harrison County Sheriff's Office, the Hancock County Sheriff's Office, the Louisiana State Police, the East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office, the Gulfport Police Department, the Mississippi Highway Patrol, and the U.S. Marshals for comment. Only Harrison County and the Louisiana State Police responded. Harrison County Sheriff Troy Peterson said he couldn't comment because the case had not been presented to a grand jury yet and his office wasn't investigating the body. A spokesperson for the Louisiana State Police told Insider that the agency wouldn't have been involved once the chase crossed state lines. After the incident, the police agencies involved in the chase have remained tight-lipped as to why the situation escalated, but police sources suggested in interviews with local outlets that Smith was to blame. Now pay attention to that. They said he was to blame. Now they're throwing all full blame on him, and like I said, he does take blame in this because he did just murder the mother of his child and her nephew, and then kidnapped the child and went on a high-speed chase that ended up with two more casualties, which was himself and his child. But the tone is very different compared to the one that I just mentioned a few minutes ago. They threw all the blame onto the two cops. They didn't throw, as far as I'm concerned, any blame on the cops that shot into this car, and they knew that there was a baby inside of that car, which means they could have done something a little bit different to avoid the baby being killed or even injured for that matter. A law enforcement source told Fox 10 that Smith had been holding his son as a human shield. The Advocate, citing an anonymous source, reported a similar story that Smith had been holding his son on his chest while driving. The source also told the Advocate that Smith fired a shot at officers at least an hour before the final shootout, injuring no one. The Advocate said it was unclear who fired first in the final shootout. After learning about the call log, LaShonda Parker questioned why officers decided to fire into the vehicle if they knew LaMello was in the front seat and they had Smith surrounded. Why would they shoot if they knew a baby was in the car? Why would they do that? She said she felt angry about how the situation was handled. I'm angry about it, she said. I'm also angry about what happened to his mother and her nephew. It was 3 tragedies in one day, and that's horrible. Well, she did ask the right question, because she says that they were surrounded around the vehicle, which means they had a very clear view of where the baby was. Was the baby in the front seat, or was he using the baby as a shield? Either way, if you could see that there was a view of the baby, they should have told them to stand down. There's a baby in the car, especially since they knew it was a baby in the car. They should have said, stand down, there's a baby here. And now the situation would have been more delicate. At least try to save the child. But see, when he shot that shot out, then they just went guns a-blazing. Shot that car up, and both him and the baby died, even though they knew there was a baby in the car. Now, I wonder if this man looked, on the more pale side, how would they have dealt with that? How would they have handled this situation? Like I said, this father is a piece of shit. Like, he killed the mother and her nephew, went on a high-speed chase and crossed state lines. I'm thinking they were in the same state, but he crossed state lines. He went from one state to another with this child. So yeah, he does have some blame in why his child is dead, but not all of it. A good percentage, but not the whole thing. the police that was involved, who knew there was a child in that car, have some blame in this as well. But I bet you they didn't get the same consequences as those 2 black cops down in Louisiana from a few years ago. I bet you they didn't get fired and reprimanded and have to do, additional, like time behind bars. Hell, I just did a video about 2 black cops in Louisiana who fired at an individual who was being belligerent, but he was a PC man. And what happened? They ended up getting fired immediately, and they got arrested immediately and charged immediately in one fell swoop. So that's all I'm saying. Keep the energy the same. That's all I'm asking. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this story down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. If you are new, make sure you hit that bell to be notified every time I upload a new video or go live.